This happened about 3 months ago. I was out hiking with my friend. For privacy reasons, I won't use her real name, let's call her Amy. Amy and I set off early, around 6 a.m., traveling by public transport. We caught the 6:35 bus to our destination. At first, the bus stop was empty, but about 10 minutes later, a man arrived. He checked the same timetable as us, so I knew he was waiting for the same bus. He sat on the bench opposite us and started reading a book. Almost immediately, I felt something was off. I glanced at the man, and every time I did, he would catch my gaze and just stare. But it wasn't a normal stare, it was sinister, cold, unsettling. I pulled out my phone and texted Amy, not wanting to say anything out loud in case he heard me. The second her phone pinged, the man looked at us. Then, he turned to Amy and asked, "Who's texting you?" The way he said it, it wasn't a casual question. It felt like he already knew the answer. Amy hesitated before replying nervously, "Oh, it's just my dad checking in." The man squinted at her for a moment, then went back to his book, mumbling to himself in a language I didn't recognize. It sounded like Polish, but I couldn't be sure. By then, the bus was only 5 minutes away, so Amy and I grabbed our things and stepped toward the curb. As we moved, the man stood up too, so close that I could feel his breath on my neck. My skin crawled. The bus pulled up, and we got on, heading straight for the back seats. The man sat at the very front, facing backward, staring directly at me. He never looked away, even when I met his gaze. Our stop was next, so Amy and I walked toward the driver's section to wait. When the bus stopped, we got off. The man stayed on. We thought that was the last we'd see of him. We were so wrong. Later that afternoon, we had stopped for lunch during our hike. We were sitting on a large rock at the top of a hill, surrounded by dense forest, laughing and gossiping. Then, Amy suddenly tensed. "Look," she whispered. "Isn't that the man from the bus?" I turned around, and my heart sank. It was him. My mind raced. How? He stayed on the bus. He had no way of knowing where we'd be. Amy shot me a nervous look and shrugged. We quickly packed up our things and started back toward the bus station. When we got there, we sat down and waited. The bus arrived, and we got on. The man was nowhere in sight. Last time we saw him, he was still on the hiking trail, miles away. A few stops passed, and we were starting to relax when the bus came to a halt. Someone got on. We thought nothing of it. Then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Hey." I turned around, it was him. He was standing there, his hand on my shoulder. Panic shot through me. How? He was miles behind us. It wasn't possible. Yes? Can I help you?" I asked cautiously. He smiled. "No. I just wanted to feel you." A cold wave of fear crashed over me. I shot up from my seat and went straight to the driver. "This man is harassing me," I said. The driver immediately stopped the bus and ordered the man to leave. As he stepped off, he turned and stared at me viciously. I didn't say another word the whole ride home. That evening, Amy and I met at her place. We watched a movie, trying to shake off the unease. After a few hours, I had to leave so her family could have dinner. I walked the short distance home and locked my door behind me. I never usually lock my door, but something about that man had me on edge. I threw some food in the microwave, turned on the TV, and ran a bath. I soaked in the water for a while, applying a face mask and trying to relax. But an uneasy feeling crept up my spine. I wasn't alone. Shaking the thought off, I quickly washed my hair and got out of the bath. I put on my pajamas, double-checked that all my windows and doors were locked, then crawled into bed. Just as I was drifting off, I thought I heard something outside. Maybe a stray dog, I told myself. Eventually, I fell asleep. Then, I bolted awake. My alarm clock read 3:20 a.m. I don't normally wake up in the middle of the night, so this was already strange. But then I heard footsteps. Someone was pacing outside my house. I sat up and turned on my lamp, my heart pounding. Moving quietly, I crept to my window and peeked outside. There, standing in my driveway, staring up at my bedroom window, was the man from the bus. I froze. For 15 minutes, he paced back and forth, muttering to himself. My mind raced with possibilities. Is he drunk? Is he lost? Then, as if sensing me watching, he stopped at my gate and turned his head directly toward me. The streetlight illuminated his face. It was him. I ducked away from the window, my heart hammering. After what felt like forever, he finally left. In the morning, I texted Amy. That man was outside my house last night. Her reply came instantly, OMFG. That day, Amy and I met for lunch at a cafe on the main street. As we talked, my stomach twisted with unease. The man was across the road. He was walking back and forth, staring directly at me. I turned to Amy. What the hell, he's here again. And it didn't stop. Everywhere I went that day, getting my nails done, grocery shopping, he was there. I couldn't take it anymore. I went straight to the police. But because he hadn't physically harmed me, they said there was nothing they could do. They logged my complaint and sent me on my way. The next few nights were worse. At 3 a.m., he would bang on my door, screaming, "Let me in. I love you." We were meant for each other. My neighbors must have called the police because one night, I saw flashing blue lights and heard him shouting, "I live here. She's my love," as they arrested him. I ran outside. I reported this man before. I told the officer. You have to do something. But all they did was warn him to stay away. A week passed. Then, the phone calls started. Unknown number. Heavy breathing. I stopped answering. Then, it escalated. 54 missed calls in 20 minutes. It got to the point where my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some days, I had over 90 missed calls. I changed my number. The calls stopped. It's been 8 weeks now. I haven't seen him. But at night, I still hear noises outside. Nothing's happened, yet. I just hope it stays that way. When I was in high school, during my freshman year, I had a small group of friends, some of whom were a year older. We all ran cross-country together and became close, often hanging out after school. However, things started to take a turn when one of the guys in our group began asking me out repeatedly. I had no feelings for him and constantly turned him down. That was when he started to act strangely. He began writing me letters filled with detailed fantasies where I would reciprocate his feelings. It made me incredibly uncomfortable. One time, while our group was at his house, he told me he wanted to show me something in his room. Being a bit naive, I followed him. Only after stepping inside did I realize we were alone, and he had shut the door behind us. Nothing happened, but an uneasy feeling settled over me. I quickly made an excuse and left the room as fast as I could. After that, our friendship completely fell apart. He would call, text, and message me constantly, even showing up at my parents' house unannounced. I did my best to cut him out of my life. Once he graduated high school, I blocked him on everything, and finally, the communication stopped. Fast forward 8 years. On my birthday, I received a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. It was him. His message said he had a gift for me and wanted to meet up. My heart dropped. I had changed my phone number since high school, so I had no idea how he got it. I ignored him, refusing to call back. But he kept reaching out, leaving messages for weeks. Then, one voicemail shook me to my core. His voice was calm but firm as he said, "I'm going to make this really short. If you don't meet up with me, I'm going to kill myself." I immediately called the police and reported it, hoping they could check on him. The problem was, I only knew his name and phone number, I had no idea where he lived. The police said they would look into it. After that, the calls stopped. 2 months later, my little sister called me in a panic. In broad daylight, my stalker had gone to my parents' house, let himself inside, and gone down to the basement, where my old room was. When my sister opened her bedroom door, which used to be mine, she found him standing there. Terrified, she confronted him. He quickly left the room but lingered in the driveway by his car. She rushed to wake up my mom, who recognized him immediately. My mom confronted him outside while my sister called the police. He told her, they said I could come over to see her. Before the police arrived, he left. When they took our statement, they told us there wasn't much they could do. The door had been unlocked, and because there were no trespassing signs in the yard, we couldn't press charges. For months, my sister and I were on edge, afraid he would come back. Then, finally, the police contacted us. They had found him. Someone else had called the police on him for an unrelated incident. When officers attempted to apprehend him, he stabbed one of them with a pick. He's in jail now, serving less than a year for both charges, stabbing an officer and unlawful entry. My family and I were granted a restraining order against him. I just hope this is truly the end. The fact that he somehow found my new phone number makes me afraid he could find my new address, too. I never expected him to turn violent, but now I know what he is capable of. And that terrifies me. This happened in 2015, but I'll never forget it. I was 21 and new to the city, fresh out of a bad relationship, and didn't know many people. Looking to meet new friends, I matched with a guy named Simon, 25, on a dating app. He said he was in a band and lived with his bandmates. He sent me their music, which wasn't my style, but he seemed nice enough. After chatting for a few days, he stopped responding, and I moved on. Then, out of the blue, he messaged, apologizing for being busy and inviting me to a backyard barbecue with his friends. He claimed their band manager provided their house. I was skeptical but thought it might be a good chance to socialize. I told him I wasn't comfortable going inside since we didn't know each other well, and he agreed to meet me at the train station. When I arrived, he wasn't there. He told me to start walking, and I met him halfway. He looked different from his photos, older, by at least 5-10 years. He was also clearly drunk. Red flag. When we reached the house, I reminded him that I didn't want to go inside. He reassured me it was just to get to the backyard. But as soon as we stepped in, he locked the door. The house didn't look like a band's home, it was decorated like a middle-aged woman's place. No sign of a party, no food, no people. I asked about the barbecue, and he said his bandmates were delayed due to van trouble. He got irritated when I questioned why he wasn't on tour with them. He insisted on showing me around. Against my better judgment, I went along. When we got to the basement, he pointed out a door he called their soundproof music studio. It looked like a cold storage room, lined with foam and only able to open from the outside. He urged me to go in. That's when alarm bells went off. I turned and bolted up the stairs. He followed, acting confused about why I was so upset. I knew I had to get out but didn't want to escalate things indoors. I played along, making small talk to keep him calm. He offered me a drink, which I declined, and he lit a cigarette. I used that as an excuse to suggest stepping outside. He refused, getting more agitated. Then, luck struck, he ran out of beer. I suggested we go to the store for more. He agreed. As we walked, I debated making a run for it, but I was afraid of being chased in an unfamiliar area. At the liquor store, I stalled, hoping he'd go inside alone, but he insisted I come with him. I saw no chance to escape. Then I spotted a gas station. I told him I needed something small, implying I might stay over. He eagerly agreed but tried to follow me in. I blurted out that you couldn't bring alcohol inside. To my relief, he believed me and waited outside. I wandered the store for half an hour, hoping he'd leave. He didn't. He stood by the window, staring in, watching for me. I didn't feel safe calling the police or asking the young staff for help. I waited near the checkout until a large group of people were leaving. As I walked out with them, I turned to Simon and loudly told him to leave me alone. The group noticed, pausing to watch. Simon hesitated, then just turned and left. It was bizarrely anticlimactic, but I was grateful. I ran to the train station and never heard from him again. His profile was gone when I checked. I wish I had reported him. I still wonder if he ever tried it again, more prepared next time. But at the time, I just wanted to forget. Now, I know better.